Hello, my name is Martin Garcia, and I did my Foodway project on El Salvador's national dish, the pupusa. I did my Foodway project on the pupusa because it's a dish that I've always wanted to learn, and I used it as an incentive to finally learn how to make it. The pupusa is a thick corn-based tortilla filled with meat, cheese, beans, and served with a corrido, which is a pickled cabbage topping, as well as a tomato salsa. In this video, I will be talking about how globalization has affected the Salvadorian dish through colonization, how the pupusa spread due to migration and neoliberal ideology. The origins of the pupusa can be dated 2,000 years ago in El Salvador, coming from an indigenous tribe called the Pipil tribe. However, back then the pupusa was a vegetarian dish, only being served with mushrooms, squash blossom, and beans, and not served with corrido or salsa. How is there such a drastic change in the pupusa from the one we consume now? Well, we can always thank colonization. In As American as Jackrabbit Adobo, Mabolon, page 149, talks about how neighboring countries and colonization from Spain influenced the Filipino diet. The pupusa was also influenced by what Spain brought during the colonial times, bringing pigs, tomatoes, cheese, cabbage, as well as other foods that we see in the modern day pupusa, showing us how colonialism globalized, affected countries, and changed cultural food recipes. Another factor that globalized the pupusa was the Cold War. In the 1800s, El Salvador was governed by an oligarchy, where Salvadorians would be paid extremely low wages. By 1932, indigenous workers led an insurrection that failed and ended with the Salvadorian government committing mass genocide against the indigenous people and those who aligned with their ideologies. In Harvey's Freedom's Just Another Word, in page 1, talks about how neoliberal political ideologies were, quote, threatened not only by fascism, dictatorship, and communism, but by all forms of state intervention that substituted collective judgment from those of individuals' freedoms to choose. The United States saw the insurrection as communist ideology spreading in Central America, causing the United States to provide government funding to train Salvadorian soldiers and death squads, which led to more death of Salvadorian citizens who were simply asking for basic working and human rights. The Salvadorian Civil War lasted from 1979 through 1992, causing a huge number of Salvadorian refugees to flee into the United States, bringing their cultural dishes with them. Although the pupusa was brought into the United States because of Salvadorian refugees, it was a key factor to the transformation of El Salvador into a neoliberal state. Harvey describes a neoliberal state in page 3 as embodying, quote, the interests of private property owners, businesses, multinational corporations, and financial capital. After the war, the peace accord was signed by both ARENA, also known as ARENA, a political party led from previous Salvadorian government officials that was funded by the United States, and FMLN, political party from the workers that caused the insurrection. The ARENA political party showed little interest in policies that would help the lower class and favored financial elites by establishing economic policies that were neoliberal in nature. But how did the ARENA win the election if they did not favor the masses of El Salvador? In a publication by International Journal of Political Economy, page 48, Chris van Dirkbork answers the question stating, although ARENA's social and economic policies can hardly be attractive for the masses of the Salvadorians, they have not made poverty any worse, whereas the large scale of migrations of Salvadorians to the United States have actually contributed to the alleviation of poverty. In a way, this export of labor is also an export of citizens, as the majority of Salvadorians in the United States do not have the right to vote, meaning that the ARENA policies did not help nor harm Salvadorians. Refugees that moved to the United States would send money back to their families, alleviating poverty in El Salvador, but these refugees now lost political influence in the Salvadorian democracy. Also, after FMLN lost the first election in 1994, they had an ideological divide within the party, which created two new political parties, ERP, a social democratic party, and RN, an ultra left wing party, which ended up creating less votes for these parties and giving Arenas another win. Arenas kept adding more neoliberal economic policies focused on agriculture, which we can see now. Although El Salvador is no longer considered a neoliberal state, we can still see how the United States injected its neoliberal ideologies for profit. However, at least now you can enjoy pupusas worldwide.